Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Ibrahim and welcome back to our data governance course. In the last video, we answered two big questions. What data governance is and why does it matter? If you haven't watched that video as yet, I strongly recommend going back and watching it first because everything we cover today builds on those foundations. In this video, we are going to answer the next logical question. How do you actually structure a data governance program? We are going to break it down into three pillars, principal, policies, and processes. And by the end of this video, you will understand the structural component that make governance work in any organization. Let's get started. So let me give you a quick recap. We define what data governance is. We define that data governance as the exercise of authority and control over management of data assets. We boil it down into three words: rules, roles, and accountability. We established that data governance is oversight, management is execution, and we saw how governance sits at the center of Dharma framework, connecting all the other data management disciplines. Now the question is, knowing all of that is great, but how do you actually structure a governance program? How do you go from the concept of governance to something that works in place, practice? That is exactly what this video is about. We are going to cover the three pillars of governance. Let's get started. So I want you to think of data governance as standing on three pillars. If any one of these pillars is weak, the entire program will be unstable. The first pillar is principle. Think of the principle as your constitution, the foundational beliefs that guide every organization and every governance decision. They define what you believe about data and how it should be managed. The second pillar is policies. Think of policies as laws, the formal rules that make those principles and codify them into specific, actionable directives that everyone must follow. The third is processes. Think of processes as your government, the operating framework, the governance bodies, and the workflows that enforce those policies day after day. Here is how they connect. Principles define what we believe, policies define what we do, and processes define how we do it. This analogy, constitution, laws, government, is one of the most useful framework for explaining governance to business leaders. So, the DMBOK cites six core principles for data governance, originally developed by Data Governance Institute. These are not optional nice to haves. They are the foundation that everything else is built on. The first principle is leadership and strategy. Successful data governance starts with visionary and committed leadership. Your data management activities must be guided by a data strategy that is itself driven by the enterprise business strategy. Without leadership backing, governance dies on the way. The second is business driven. Data governance is a business program. It must govern IT decisions related to data just as much as it governs business interaction with data. This is critical. Governance is not an IT initiative with a business sponsor. It is the business initiative with IT support. The third is shared responsibility. Across all knowledge areas, governance is a shared responsibility between business data stewards and technical data management professionals. Neither side can do it alone. Fourth is multi-layered governance operates at this enterprise level, divisional level, and the local level, often simultaneously. A global organization cannot govern data the same way as the headquarters and at every regional office. The framework needs layers. The fifth is framework based because governance activities requires coordination across functional areas. You need an operating framework that clearly defines accountability and interaction. Without a framework, governance is just a collection of good intentions. The sixth is principle based. That guiding principles are the foundation of governance activities, especially policies. Organization should Organization should articulate core principles before jumping straight to writing policies. When you start principles, you can always point back to them when people resist a specific policy. The principle is the why behind the rule. Beyond these six principles, DMBOK defines three essential characteristics that every data governance program must have. First, it must be sustainable. The data governance is not a project with an end date. It is an ongoing program that requires continuous organizational commitment. Second, it must be embedded. Governance cannot be an add-on process that sits on side of everything else. It needs to be incorporated into how you use data for analytics, into your master data management processes, into your risk management frameworks. If governance is a separate activity that people have to remember to do, they will forget. Third, it must be measured. Good governance has positive financial impact, but you can only demonstrate that impact if you understand your starting point and plan for measuring improvement. You need baseline, you need matrices, and you need to show progress over time. This is how you keep executive support by providing the governance that governance is delivering a value. Now let's move to second pillar, policies and standards. These two concepts are related but different, and it is important to understand this distinction. Data policies are directives that codify principles into fundamental rules. They govern the creation, acquisition, integrity, security, quality, and use of data across the organization. Policies are global. They apply to everyone, everywhere in the organization. They have a life cycle. They must be communicated to the people who needs to follow them, monitored to ensure compliance, enforced when they are violated, and periodically evaluated to make sure they are still relevant. Data standards are more specific. A standard is defined as something set by the authority as rule for measuring quality. Standard helps to define quality because they provide a specific measurable basis for comparison. Here is the key difference. A policy says customer data must be protected. A standard says social security number must be masked in all non-production environment. Let me give you another example. A policy might say all customer-facing data must meet defined quality thresholds. Corresponding standard says customer email completeness must be at least 98% and customer address accuracy must be 99%, 95% for example. See the difference? The policy is what, the standard is how much. Let me show you what policies actually look like in practice. These examples come directly from DMBOK. But the data governance office will certify data for use by the organization. This means not just any data gets used. It has to be certified, validated, approved. Second, business owners will designate data stewardship with day-to-day governance responsibility. This establishes the stewardship chain. All certified data will be evaluated regularly for accuracy, completeness, consistency, and compliance. Notice how this connects to measurability. Certified users will be granted access to the certified data for ad hoc reporting. So now we come to the third pillar, the operating framework. This is where governance moves from document to action. The DMBOK describes the governance operating framework through three functional views, and this is very elegant way to think about it. The first is legislative. Just like a legislature in government, this function is about defining policies, setting standards, and establishing enterprise data architecture. It is do the right thing side of the governance. The second view is judicial. Like a court system, this function handles issue management and escalation when there are conflicts, conflicting policies, conflicting definitions, disputes about data ownership. The third view is executive. Like the executive branch of the government, this function handles day-to-day administration, protecting and serving, making sure the machinery of the governance actually runs. At the top of at the top is the Data Governance Steering Committee, the highest authority made up of cross-functional senior executives. They provide oversight, support, and funding. Below that is the Data Governance Council or DGC. This is the operational leadership body that manages governance initiatives, develops policies, track matrices, and handle issue escalation. Then is the Data Governance Office, DGO. This team has an ongoing focus on enterprise level data definition and data management standards across all knowledge areas. And at the working level, you have data stewardship teams. Communities of interest focus on specific subject areas or projects, working on data definition and standards in their domain. These four bodies work together as a system. The steering committee sets the direction and the funds the work. The council manages the program. The office maintains the standard, and the stewardship teams do the daily work on the ground. Now, here is something really practical. When a data issue arises, say there is a conflict about who owns a particular data set and a quality problem that needs resolution. It does not go straight to the CEO. According to the DM book, 88%, 80 to 85% of all data issues are resolved at the data stewardship team level. The these are people closest to the data and they can handle most day-to-day issues themselves. Only about 20% of issues needs to be escalated to Data Governance Council. These are the ones that cross business unit boundaries or involve policies conflict that stewardship team cannot solve on their own. Less than 5% of the issues ever reach to the steering committee. These are truly strategic issues, things that require executive decision making or significant budget allocation. This is incredibly important for two reasons. First, it shows that empowered stewardship teams are the backbone of effective data governance. If you invest on your stewards, you solve most problems before they become big problems. Second, it shows that governance does not have to be bureaucratic. If 85% of the issues are resolved locally, governance is actually making things faster, not slower. Now you might be wondering, how do I design the right operating model for my organization? The DM book gives us four key factors to consider. First factor is the value of the data to your organization. If your organization sells data as a product, think data brokers, analytics companies, then your governance model needs to be very vigorous. If data is more of an operational lubricant, important but not the product itself, the model can be less intense. Second factor is your business model. Are you centralized or decentralized? Local or international? A global organization with operations in 50 countries will need a very different governance model than a single office startup. Third factor is culture. How how does your organization handle disciplines and change? Some organizations thrive on formal processes and clear rules. Others resist anything that feels imposed. Fourth factor is regulatory impact. Highly regulated industries, financial sectors, healthcare, pharmaceutical will naturally need more formal governance structure because the regulators demand it. The key message here is that there is no one size fit all operating model. Your framework must fit your organization's culture, business model, regulatory environment. What works for a multinational bank will not work for a tech startup. Let me talk about regulatory compliance because this is often where data governance begins. The DM book states clearly that regulatory compliance is often initial reason for implementing data governance. Many organizations do not start governance because they want to. They start because they have to. Look at the regulatory landscape. GDPR, CCPA govern data privacy and consumer rights. Basin and BCBS sets requirement for risk data aggregation in banking. HIPAA protects the healthcare sector. Every single one of these regulations requires disciplined data management, and disciplined data management requires governance. The governance team must evaluate three questions for their regulation. First, how is this regulation relevant to our organization? Not every regulation applies to every company. Second, what constitutes compliance? What if specific policies and procedures? What specific policies and procedures do we need? And third, what is the risk and penalty of non-compliance? Here is the practical key takeaway. If you are trying to get executive buy-in for a governance program and the data is as an asset, argument is not lending, try the compliance argument. Ask your leadership, can we demonstrate to regulators exactly where our reported data comes from? So key takeaways from this video. Number one, data governance is built on three pillars: principle, policies, and processes. Think constitution, law, and government. Number two, DM book defines six core principles: leadership and strategy, business driven, shared responsibility, multi-layered, framework based, principle based. Number three, a governance program must be sustainable, embedded, and measured. It is not a project; it is an ongoing program. Number four, policies are global rules that codify principle into action. Standards are specific measurable requirements. Both should be mandatory. Number five, the operating framework has three functional views: legislative, judicial, and executive. The work is carried out by the steering committee, the council, and the governance office, and the stewardship teams. Number six, regulatory compliance is often the initial driver for governance. Use it to build the business care. Now you have the framework, the three pillars, principal, policies, and operating model, and the regulatory connection. But here's the thing, a framework without people is just a document. The best policies in the world means nothing if nobody is responsible for carrying them out. This is why in the next video we are going to talk about the people who make the governance real, the data stewards, data owners, the chief data officer, and how to build the data stewardship team from scratch. If you are enjoying this series, please hit the subscribe button so you do not miss the next video. Give it a like, it really helps more people discover this content. And if you have a colleague who is trying to set up a governance at their organization, share this video with them. My name is Mohammed Ibrahim, and thank you for watching. See you in the next video.